Dear students, this is our first topic on electrostatics, and as we know that electrostatics is the beginning, first chapter of NCERT book. All my lectures on all the topics of physics of 11th and 12th will be strictly based on NCERT, because NCERT is the ultimate. With this, you understand everything. After that, I have some numerical book. I'll follow that to make you some numericals. All my students, those who are already my students, they know it very well, and what I follow strictly. And then we'll go to HC Verma, and after that, for JE students, we'll go to Resnick and Halliday, and at the end, for JE students, we'll go to Aerodose. That will be, of course, separately discussed in entrance section, which playlist I didn't make yet. Now, to start with electrostatics, we have to understand one thing very clearly, that what actually we are talking about electrostatics. The name itself says electrostatics, electron when they are static, when they are mobile. So we all know from the very beginning that if you have an atom, in the atom we have a structure like this, and we have various electrons in the various levels and shells. Same thing is being discussed in chemistry, and we have electron distributed in different layers and depending on the energy they have. I won't go to all details right now, but some critical explanation of the first class of class 12 as a whole is essential to understand, and this will carry over all throughout the syllabus of class 12 and higher. I request even my BSc students and BTech students go through these lectures once to make the foundation much clear, so that your courses you handle more carefully and with more clarity. Now, once you have this structure like this, this is one electron. Suppose I have one electron, and this electron is exposed to one field. Now you'll ask me, what is field? Field means affinity to take electron. For that, I have to make you understand clearly actually what do I mean. Suppose you have sodium and you have chlorine. Sodium has got atomic number 11 and chlorine has got atomic number 70. If I go by the electron distribution, for sodium it will be 1s2, it will be 2s2, 2p6. That makes it 2 plus 2, 4 and 10, and 3s1. And for chlorine, I have a very clear picture: 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2 and 3p5. This makes my chlorine. Once you have a structure like this, that is very clear. We all know, you are in 12th now, or my higher level students, they already know that one electron is, if it is given out, that will lead to octet state. And here, if one electron is accepted, that will lead to octet state. So all atoms are in a mood of taking octet state, and in the process they either give out electron or take electron. I won't go to much details of this because my aim is to make you understand electrostatics here clearly. Now, if this is the case, then we can say any atom whose outermost number of electrons are 3 or less than 3. 3 or less than I have to write it another way around. 3 or less than 3, outermost electron is 3 or less than 3. This is what we call conductor. Please try to understand. And if you have equal to 4, we call it semiconductor. And atom, see, this is what I am saying about number of atoms, and less than equal to 5, I'm sorry, I said the wrong way. It should be less than equal to 5. Less than equal to 5, we call it insulator. Means the number of atoms should be either 5 or more than 5. Number of electrons, I mean to say, outside, outermost. In this case we call it insulator, in this case we call it semiconductor, and in this case we call it conductor. Please try to understand this. You can verify any number of atoms with any atomic number and distribute them and find out the exact number of electrons in the outermost. If it is less than 3 or equal to 3, up to equal to 3, it is conductor, so sodium is a conductor. And any number that is equal to or greater than 5 outermost is a insulator, and chlorine is of course an insulator. So these are the three structure first we talked about, and this will carry forward this knowledge everywhere in the concept. Now in the whole syllabus, not only in electrostatics but in other chapters too. Now when we talk about this, we are very clear that we have something where we have capacity to take electrons. We can call that to be positive charge, and something where there is capacity to give electrons, and let's call that to be negative charge. This is all about the beginning of two types of charges. Only by convention we call certain charge to be positive, which is an acceptor, and only by convention we say certain charges to be negative, and which is a lines of force keeper, we call it later. Now suppose say we talk about electrostatics and what is all about the whole topic. Electrostatics, that is chapter 1 and chapter 2 as a whole, I'll consider the whole, both the chapters are nothing but they are only 3 formulas. This is all every year I repeat, and all my students knows this. So first formula is number 1 formula we should know is Coulomb's law. Number 2 is also Coulomb's law, and number 3 is also Coulomb's law. The whole 2 chapters are only inclusion of Coulomb's law. So you understand the intensity of Coulomb's law, how important it is to understand the whole electrostatics. So let me tell you first what is Coulomb's law. Coulomb's law says that if you have 2 charges, suppose I have a positive charge, I have another positive charge, suppose, and there is a distance between them. You can correlate this with your gravitation chapter of 11th. Suppose this is my Q1 and this is my Q2, and distance between them is r, then Coulomb said F is proportional to product of the charges Q1 and Q2 and inversely proportional to the square of the distance. So whenever you have proportional sign, you can get rid of the proportional sign and bring an equal sign, and there is a constant k. I'll write the value of k later, and then we can equate this Q1 Q2 by r square. Now this k is including the medium where actually this both the charges are kept, and this k also says that it's a 3-dimensional concept. This charge can be here, here, or there, up or down, anywhere. It doesn't matter much. So k is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. Epsilon naught is the permittivity, very important term. Permittivity comes from permission. Permittivity. Epsilon naught is permittivity of the medium where the charges are kept, and rest is same Q1 Q2 by r square. Another thing very important, by giving r square, as you know in vectors, r square, if r is a vector, means I am defined from the direction 1 to 2 or 2 to 1. But if I give a square to a vector, the vector vanishes. With this concept, I can easily say the square is also getting rid of the vector direction and it's turning to magnitude. Or in simple words, I can say, if you take this system in a coordinate system like this, and you consider the q from q1 to q2, it is positive. That means if you consider the direction from q2 to q1, it's negative. It will be negative in that case, but giving a square makes it all the same. If you consider this to be plus or minus, it doesn't matter. If it turns to minus with a square sign, the minus vanishes. So we have a very nice inverse law, inverse square law. That means you are talking about, in summary, you are talking about the first law, that is real sense Coulomb's law, in a three-dimensional concept, and you have further clarification of this, of Coulomb's law, in another two laws. But we have to go a little bit elaborate to understand it further. Till now, I didn't discuss Coulomb's law in terms of vectors. But force is of course a vector. So I can give this vector symbol to it, is equal to, let me write this k means 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught, and q1, and instead of q1, let me call it q naught. It's all the same, just name. In previous case I said q1, q2, here I am calling this to be q and q naught. And this is r1 square, r square. To get rid of this, because I cannot equate a vector with a scalar quantity, this side has to be vector, and all the contents of right hand side. In k we have 4 pi, 1 by 4 pi epsilon, nothing of this can be vector. Q and q naught cannot be vector, and r square is in the form of square, so we cannot give a vector to this. If you give, there is no meaning, so it's all the same. So I can give an unit vector r hat, means the direction is same, but the value, direction remains same, but value is unit, so it won't change anything of this. Is it clear? So this is what we have to give little emphasis. Right now I'm not going details of this, we'll come again to this. This concept should be very much clear. Lots of doubt arises in this, so we should be very clear about this. Next part. Suppose say I have q here, this is my q, and here I have q naught. I have an intention to change the symbol from q1, q2 to q and q naught. Suppose that this is a charge which has got some strength, some value, whereas this q naught is unit charge. Unit charge means, say we have positive, both are positive, this is also positive, this is also positive. Field of this will be much bigger than field of q naught. In such cases, we call this type of charge as test charge. Nothing but these are we call test charge. Means we have to understand the value of q, the strength of q with q naught. This is not you and me who will feel the intensity of the field of q plus q. It is another charge who will face the intensity of the plus q. So you have to have a very clear understanding of this test charge whose magnitude is only 1. So it won't influence that charge, but with this you can sense the influence of the charge plus q and the range in which its influence can be experienced. So once we talk about this, we have to understand very clearly that we are talking about something of a field. Field means an area where we have influence of this positive charge q plus q, but field is experienced